want you to turn to Mark, the 4th chapter, 35th verse. Mark, 4th chapter. Been preaching on this theme of maturity, of growing up, of being all that we can be spiritually. We've been on that. We've declared this is the year of maturity. Part of what you saw here this morning, part of the meetings we've been having, most of the sermons I've been preaching are all about maturing, are all about growing up, all about Ephesians, the 4th chapter, getting to the place where the devil can't beat us up, jerk us around, getting to the place where we're producing fruit, getting to the place where we're all that God intends for us to be. And storms are a part. Storms produce certain things in our lives. And as I look across this congregation as the senior pastor and being here through the tent days, 2 years almost in the tent, the little block building. By the way, I preached in Pastora Ilda's church in Las Lajas area there in Panama City, and the old pulpit. Richard, you'll remember the old pulpit that was in the little block building, and we moved it to the tent. That old pulpit, I had not preached in that church before. I don't know how long they've had that pulpit, but here I am preaching from my old wooden pulpit. They had sanded that thing down and stained it really good and varnished it, and it was really neat preaching behind that old pulpit that I hadn't preached behind for 13, 14 years. We'd shipped it down there with a bunch of stuff that we'd sent in a container. That was pretty good stuff. Had a move of God, but storms. Well, let me tell you the story here. Jesus was teaching. He was preaching to the multitudes, and the people are pressing in and pushing and shoving. You guys know how it is when we get in some of these crusades. Remember, Wendell, some of the India crusades, and people are just trying to touch us. Thousands of people. I remember the night that 5,000 people come to the Lord, and there was probably 15,000 people in that outdoor crusade, and they're doing everything in their power to get to you. And we were afraid they were going to turn the stage over and somebody's going to get trampled. And I jumped off the stage and just went through the crowds laying hands on people, because so there wasn't a central place that all them people could push. And you know, Wendell and the different team is with us. We're going through there, and they're pulling their clothes and jerking at us. But you know, I was just thinking about Jesus with all these people pressing on, and the Bible said that he got into a boat and got out from a land a little bit. I'd say he got out over where the water was over their head, because I bet you there was people standing in ankle deep water and knee deep water. I bet you there were people, they were crowding in there trying to get as close as they could to him. And can you imagine that sight? And the Bible says at the end of this service that Jesus began, it said that he come to pass on the I'm in the wrong place. And the same day when the evening was come, he said unto the disciples, unto them, let us pass over to the other side. There was something that happened that caused these people not only to pass over to the other side physically, but there was a spiritual thing that happened here. There was several spiritual things that happened. And it happened as a result of a storm. And sometimes storms are unexpected. Sometimes storms are uncomfortable. Almost every storm I've ever been in has been uncomfortable, but I've always come out on the other side stronger. My faith has been stronger. Sometimes storms are they're unpredictable. This storm come from nowhere. They're on the Sea of Galilee, and the wind comes down through the mountains and through that area down through there. And that cold air from the north comes down from Mount Hermon, and it hits with that warm water from the Sea of Galilee, and just out of nowhere. And so here that cool water is coming down. I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but you deer hunters, which way does the wind come in the evening? If you're going deer hunting and you don't want a deer to smell you, which way does the wind come in the mornings? I mean, in the evening. We got down. Ain't none of you guys hunters? I'm educating you guys today. You're just learning something new. You can lick your finger and find out which way there's some air coming from this way. You lick your finger and you feel which way the wind's blowing. How many of y'all have ever seen somebody with a campfire, and in the evening the smoke comes down the holler? Well, the Sea of Galilee is below sea level, and it's down a holler, if you will, that comes down from Mount Hermon. And in the evening, the wind comes down hollers, and in the morning, the air goes up. If you light a fire at the base of a mountain and there's a hollow up through there, that wind will go up through there. So if you guys are deer hunting, just remember that you don't. You better get upwind. You always got to get upwind to what you're trying to get. Anyway, that didn't cost anything. So here this wind is coming down in the evening. This wind, like it always does from Mount Hermon, comes from the north, and it's coming into this warm air that's trapped down there from the Sea of Galilee, and there's a huge storm that comes up, unpredictable, unexpected. And remember that Peter, James, and John, at least the three of them were fishermen, and they were fishermen on the Sea of Galilee. They were accustomed to this. This was something that was over and above what they had experienced in the past. And these guys have been on the Sea of Galilee all their lives. They were professional. They were experienced. But this wind come down through there as they were passing over to the other side. And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship, and there were also with him other little ships. I think about the people that are looking to us. You folks that were up here, up front, this senior leadership teams. There's people that are looking at you. They're looking at your life. As we are in our little ship and we're doing our thing, there's other folks and little ships all around us that are looking to us. They're thinking, if you go that way, it ought to be safe. Surely you guys know what you're doing. Peter, James, and John weren't strangers to the Sea of Galilee and Capernaum and Tiberias and all this area down there. So here they are, and these little ships are following them, and there arose a great storm. Not just a storm, but a great storm of wind. And the waves beat into the ship so that it was now full. They're out there in the Sea of Galilee, and a great storm, an unexpected storm, and a storm they were unprepared for, and an uncomfortable situation. They're right in the middle, and Jesus has told them, I want you to cross and go to the other side. I want you to physically go from this side to the other side, from the east side to the west side. If you could imagine Mount Hermon to your back and the Dead Sea to the south of you, and over here is Gadara, where they were going. And the next thing that happened was the demoniac at Gadara, the demon-possessed guy. Sometimes I get in some of these prisons and I think about this demon-possessed guy in Gadara that nobody could handle and nobody could hold. I remember squeezing a guy in the homosexual HIV transvestite cell at La Jolla one time. Some of y'all seen the pictures. They were dressed up like women, and this guy's about this tall, and he stood right inside the cell, and the door's open. And I've been preaching on 1 Corinthians 6:9, be not deceived. These people won't inherit the kingdom of heaven. And I give the list that Paul gave to the church at Corinth. And here I am, and Roberto's looking at me like, are you really preaching this? And they got us locked in here, and the thought come to my mind about this demoniac at Gadara, and I stepped through, and something made me grab that guy and hug him, and I thought, this guy could break me in two, and he just squeezed me and went to weeping. But this, what was happening here, they're going down the Sea of Galilee, going across from the east side to the west side. And this great storm, and it's filling the boat up. And the Bible said it was now full. They're fixing to sink. And Jesus, was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. Wonder what he was dreaming about. Wonder what he was thinking about. He knew what was going on. He's just chilling. It says, and they awoke him, and they said to him, Master, carest not that we perish. He knew the storm. He knew the situation. He knew what they were doing. He laid down on that pillow knowing that this is what's just ahead. And he said, don't you care that we're dying? We're going to perish. It's over with. And he arose and he rebuked the wind. The wind was what caused the problem. He rebuked the wind, and then he said to the waves and to the sea, if you just deal with the situation and you don't deal with the root. If you got a splinter in your finger and you put mercurochrome, anybody remember mercurochrome? When I was a little boy, I looked like an Indian. I was painted and had so many stitches. You wrap it up and you put Neosporin, mercurochrome, or whatever, and that splinter's still in there, you still got issues. It's going to get sore and sore and sore. It has to come out. Jesus didn't just speak to the waves. He rebuked the cause of the waves, the source of it, the root of it. That's the way Jesus does. Our storms, we have to get to the root of the storm. We have to find out why we're in these situations. If the steps of good men are ordered to the Lord, God's doing something with us. He's trying to accomplish something. And he was trying to accomplish something in these guys. And he said, don't you care that, they said, don't you care that we perish? He rebuked the wind and he said, peace be still to the sea. And the wind ceased and there was a great calm. Golly, Mom. And he said unto them, why are you so fearful? Why are you stressed out? The word fearful here means, why are you, what you afraid of? Not in a great way, but just, what you scared about? And how is it that you have no faith? And verse 41 is where I really want to go here. Verse 41, they feared, a whole different word in the Greek. A whole different word in the Greek language. The word feared here is where we get our word phobia. A phobia. People say, well, don't be afraid. Well, I'm afraid of heights. I've got a phobia. I'm afraid of this or I'm afraid of that. People can't help it. I know people like Hank that's afraid of a needle. It messes Hank up. How many of y'all have ever seen Hank when they get a needle around him anywhere close? He's allergic to it. This word here is a complete different. Can you imagine somebody that's killing a bear with a rock and sticking sharpened sticks through a bear because they run out of bullets and it's got your dogs laying all over with puncture marks in it and broke bones and a nurse, nice, sweet. I can imagine Leah walking out with a syringe and it's not imagined, it's real. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes down, all this stuff. This is what Jesus said. They feared exceedingly. The word exceedingly there is mega. Like mega bar, mega jackpot, mega whatever, mega. These disciples fear. What were they feared about? They are not feared at the storm. The storm is not raging any longer. The wind is not blowing anymore. The waves are calm. They're sitting there in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. And they're shaking in their boots. Would to God that we would really recognize who Jesus is. Would to God that the churches in America would get over playing God games and preaching this prosperity gospel that is not a real gospel. And I believe in prosperity. Would to God that we would get over our little games and goofiness and get serious about soul. Would to God that we would have an experience with Jesus to the degree that we're just shaking in the presence of a holy God. And there's no more games. There's no more manipulating. There's no more taking advantage of people. There's no more trying to impress folks with what you wear, or what you do, or what you say. Would to God that we would have a transforming situation where we got in the manifest presence of God. These people, these disciples, and these people in these little ships that's watching, they feared exceedingly, and they said one to another, what manner of man is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? There was an awakening, if you will. They had to wake Jesus up in the back part of the ship, but these people had an awakening. When he spoke to the wind, and then he rebuked the wind and calmed the sea with his words. Wow. That's who we work for. That's my boss. That's my boss. That's who I work for. I don't work for you. God bless you all. You withhold your tithes. You get mad, go somewhere else. I'm going to make it. I love yous, but I don't work for you. I work for him. He's the boss. He's in charge. You better not do something that makes him mad. You better not mistreat me. That's my daddy. He's in charge. These guys, it finally sunk in. He's the boss. He's in charge. Even the wind and the waves obey him. They were shaking in their boots. They're a lot more scared at this point in time than they was when he spoke to. They thought they were going to die. The ship is full. We're going down. It's over with. Sayonara. But here, it's a whole different word for fear here. They're in the presence of Jesus, the fullness of the Godhead bodily. God with skin stretched over him is in the boat. If he's in the boat, everything's going to be all right. These storms, these guys were never the same. Can you imagine? This was before Mount Hermon when Moses and Elijah, Moses representing the law and Elijah representing the prophets. This was before, it was Matthew said the law and the prophets were before John. But since that time, Jesus is here. Jesus is preached. The kingdom is preached. This was before all these other manifestations. This was early on. This is Mark, the 4th chapter. This is at the beginning of his ministry. Man, he shows out, and he shows out big. But he told them folks, I want you to go across to the other side. He wants you to go across to the other side today. Me? Yeah, you. Every time we go in a new country, every time we go into a difficult situation, it's taken us over to the other side. And it didn't stop there. They come over and hit land, and this crazy demoniac with hundreds of demons and ran. This guy that's naked and cutting himself, and they've tried to chain him up, and he's breaking chains. Nobody could do anything with him. Was delivered. It never stops. Jesus never quits saying, I want you to go to the other side. I want you to go to the next level. I want to reveal myself to you. I want you to know who I am. They that do know their God, Daniel 11:32 said, will be strong and do exploits. He wants us to be strong. He wants us to do exploits. He wants us to reach our full potential. When I look and I think about what's going on here, about this crossing. The only time in the whole Bible, apparently, that Jesus was ever mentioned as sleeping. We got this thing we say and cut up about sleep is for sissies. And you can always tell one of RIO's mission teams because the vehicles that we sit on has got greasy side windows because our heads we're because we just run till we can't run no more, and when we sit down, when our butt hits something that'll hold us, we nod out. Sleep is for sissies. Jesus was only mentioned of one time, as far as I can tell, sleeping in the Bible, and this was it. And he did it intentionally. He did it just to mess with these guys. He did it to make them grow. God's will is that you grow. God's will is that I grow. He's always going to put you in difficult situations. You're going to have to become a storm trooper. You're going to have to become accustomed to storms, because it's only through these uncomfortable situations, these unparalleled opportunities to take you to the next level. It's only there. Laura, that story you were talking about fit right in. God takes us to these places knowing what's going to happen. Some of you folks have got the phone call. Yes, the test was positive. You've got cancer. Yes, you've got this, you've got that. We've all been there. You've lost your job. Wayward children. Problems financially, health-wise. Misunderstandings, relationship problems. We're real people and we live real lives. It just happens. And God allows it. And all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord, the called according to His purpose. His purposes were accomplished as they went to the other side. As we go to the other side, as we allow God to take us to the next level, it's going to be good. Our church is going to another level. We're going across to the other side. Storms change us. These guys were never the same. Can you imagine being in a boat and God revealed His power in such a tangible way that they're shaking in their boots? Feared exceedingly. They're flipping out. You think they were scared when they thought they were going to die? It ain't the same word. It ain't on the same level. It's a whole different ball game. I'm reminded of the Old Testament, Daniel and Elijah and some of them guys when they would get in the presence of God and their knees would shake and they'd fall on their face. John the Revelator. In the presence, the manifest presence of God. How long has it been since you've been challenged? Storms challenge us. Storms change you forever. Storms take you to the next level. They educate us. As we stand all across this sanctuary, I want to ask, is there anybody here that's been going through a storm recently? Sometimes storms are God shaking your world, messing up your world to help you see Him and His will for your life. I went through a storm before I surrendered my life to Jesus. My life is spiraling out of control, drugs and alcohol and just craziness. And I was miserable. Is anybody in this place miserable this morning? Maybe it's God saying, this little dab will do you. Religion ain't going to work. I want all of you. Anybody going through a storm? There may be somebody here this morning that you've always been a good person, a good moral person. You've been a good provider for your family. You've been a good husband, a good wife. But you just never really stepped out. You've always been satisfied with being normal, average, mediocre. I know a lot of people that God has shook things up, ruffled the nest to make them uncomfortable. Storms are uncomfortable. That happens a lot of times because God's trying to get you to cross to the other side. If you're in this place today and you're uncomfortable, you're unhappy, whether you're a Christian or not, if you're in this place today and you're just uneasy, I used to make a comment about a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. That's how I felt when I knew I needed to make a decision for Christ. I was talking to a young leader in our church recently, and man, I'm so concerned about our young people. I'm so concerned about the 30-somethings down. Man, when I'm 57. I'll be 57 in March. Man, I knew when things were right, and I knew when things were wrong. I knew when I was on my way to hell. There was never deception with me. Everything was black or white. I knew when everything is okay, and I knew when things weren't. But the society that our children and our grandchildren are growing up in, folks, you guys that are my age, the lines have been blurred. There's such a deception that, God understands. This grace, man, I believe in grace. Grace is not getting what you deserved. I believe in the unmerited favor of God, the unearned blessings and love of God on our life. I believe in all that. I had an acquaintance a while back told me that the book of James, that faith without works is dead, that didn't even belong in the Bible. I had this guy telling me that was diametrically opposed to Paul's writing on grace. And it didn't fit. And a lot of the other disciples that more or less he was, and of course Paul didn't say that kind of stuff. Paul, if you read it all in context. But this is the world we live in. We live in a deception, in a place that Jesus said when he was asked, how do you know that the end's coming? How do you know when you, and Jesus said, take heed, let no man deceive you. Deception is the number one indicator of the coming of the Lord. And we live right in the midst of deception to a degree that I've never, ever seen. There's a lot of people think that they're okay and they're not. Scares me. And when you preach about it, Dan Johnson and myself were talking this week about, when I got back from Columbia, we were talking about how can we, without seeming like we're legalistic, how can we as leaders from our generation, how can we speak to this generation? How can we let them know that God is a holy God and he demands holiness? And holiness is a list of do's and don'ts. Righteousness is a gift, and holiness comes out of his righteousness. But if he's in there, 1 John 3:9, if his seed remaineth in us, we can't practice intentionally, on purpose, deliberately sin. It ain't happening. If you're deliberately on purpose caught up in ongoing sin, Unless I'm terribly wrong. You've not been born again. Man, that sounds legalistic. Is that what the Word says? There's a lot of people that have been led to believe that I'm okay. God understands and I can do this stuff. Woo-hoo. Boy, we live in a dangerous time. Perilous times, the Bible says about the times that we're living. Sometimes the storms that we encounter is God trying to get our attention. It wasn't about Jesus waking up. It was about those folks waking up. Is anybody here this morning that would say, I just need to make sure my heart's right with God this morning? Anybody? I just need to surrender it all. No more playing games. No more maybe so. Man, I need concrete under my feet. You walk into prison with 2,000 or 3,000 worst of the worst of the worst, and they're all around you, and ain't no guards. And these people are animals almost. You got to have concrete under your feet. You got to know you're supposed to be there. These 7 sons of Sceva in the Bible, when they were going to cast out these demons, Paul I know and Jesus I know, but who and are you? And they tore their clothes off and sent them down the road whistling, skint and naked. I need concrete. I need to know. Is anybody in this place today that needs to know that everything's all right with you and God? Is there anybody in this place today that needs to know that storms always end? That this situation that you may be in, it can't last forever. No storm that has ever existed lasted forever. These altars are open right now. If you need prayer for any reason, I want you to step out. Let's pray for you.